Hey everyone, this is Jay, also known as Jaynemesis over on eToro, where I trade as a popular investor. This is our weekly update for week 48 of 2018. So our top news this week, eToro have reintroduced stop losses to cryptos. Now, you probably, like me, hearing this right now, were pretty excited by this news, as were, from what I can tell, most of the community. Stop losses have been missing from cryptocurrencies for some time now. They were removed way back in, I think it was January or February of this year. So we were unable to close positions as the price was decreasing. eToro suggested this was primarily due to slippage and was in fact their effort at trying to protect investors. They're now using that same line that they're trying to protect investors upon reintroducing it. But the way that they've reintroduced it kind of leads me to question maybe not that their motives are not to protect investors, but certainly that they are not protecting everyone by doing this. So the good news about them reintroducing it is that if you are someone that is a long-term investor and you maybe bought at like, I don't know, 16,000 or something on Bitcoin and you've watched it tumble, you may have noticed that you had a grayed out stop loss field in your position and you were unable to edit that. So effectively the price went down to, let's say, $100. It would actually have sold even though you didn't want it to, and there's nothing that you could have done to stop that. So by enabling people to change the stop loss all the way down to 100%, this means that effectively now you can set the price at more or less zero, and you will still own your crypto position even if it continues to decline in value. I agree with eToro that this is actually a really good thing for those guys, and for anyone that invested around that period who has perhaps struggled with this, they do now have that added protection. Unfortunately, eToro only introduced the maximum stop loss level to 50%. So if your position declines by 49%, it will not get stopped out. If it declines by 50, then it would if you set it at that level. The problem here is that for day traders and for swing traders and anyone who's actually trying to even just invest in it now, even as a long-term trader, who maybe wanted to set a stop loss of 5% or 10% or 20%, they are still unable to do that. And for me, this is effectively where eToro's big backlash came from when they announced this through social media and emails and on the platform. Most people appear to be very, very frustrated by this. Like myself, they would like to be able to actually go to sleep at night rather than stay up at 4 a.m., like I have done a few times over the past week to close out some trades. And this is something that really most other exchanges have now. And eToro, again, they phrased this announcement like it was actually the full stop loss functionality coming back, when that's not the case. The other thing that I think people may find frustrating here is that actually, if you change your stop loss to be minus 100%, then you may actually get charged an extra fee. And from what I can understand, the reason for this fee is that eToro had a bug on their system when a lot of these earlier positions were opened, which meant that the positions were opened at the sell price and not the buy price, meaning that eToro did not actually earn the spread. While most of this spread would actually be profit for eToro, certainly eToro is a broker, which means that they go through other exchanges, which means that they do owe other exchanges fees every time they do this. So they've been taking these hits on the chin for some of the positions that they've had to change manually when people have phoned up support and asked them to change their stop loss manually. But perhaps, I guess, they've figured out that they've run out of money or they don't want to spend money on this anymore and they would like to pass that cost back over to the customer, which is, I guess, where it technically should have been. I'm not sure if they're still using the standard spread that they were going to use, or if maybe they've just removed all of their profit off of that and left it at the spread that they themselves were paying to other exchanges. But either way, to me, it feels like they probably should have just taken this one on the chin, or at least been a bit more transparent about it, and perhaps even given more of a warning, because it didn't really go into too much detail on that situation in the post that they released. Obviously, a lot of the community members are very angry about this. I'm not the best pleased, but I do still think that eToro is kind of trying to move in the right direction slowly but surely. We've seen the spreads come down. The reintroduction of the stop loss, even at this level, is still a good start, even though it's not what we wanted. I just feel like eToro's communication over this was lacking quite severely. Next up, there's some drama in EOS involving Dan Larimer. So EOS obviously hasn't had the best of weeks. It's actually down by more than any of the other coins in the top 10 for the past week. And I think this is due to two reasons. The first reason is that EOS doesn't actually have that many technical support levels in between around $4 and around $2. So it's been kind of difficult for those trying to support the price to really find anywhere to kind of regroup as a big horde and stop the price from deteriorating any further. But the real reason, and I think the catalyst for this move, is all around Dan Larimer's recent comments on Telegram. So for those of you that are perhaps unaware, Dan is the brains behind EOS. He founded it way back when. He's also worked on Steem and BitShares prior to this, and he's always been a bit of a thinker. What's interesting is that he decided to go onto Telegram this week and share some of the things that he's been thinking about, which includes creating a currency token that's immutable and non-programmable, similar to Bitcoin or many of the other cryptocurrencies like that. And that's all he said about it. So obviously this filled the community with doubt after Dan went onto Telegram and shared the fact that he was looking at all of these different ideas, such as a cryptocurrency that was immutable and designed not to be programmable. Obviously this is more similar to something like Bitcoin or Dash or these normal kind of cryptocurrency style cryptos, I guess. And people were very, very fearful that Dan had basically just announced that he was leaving the project. He also shared a few other ideas. He mentioned the idea of removing delegated proof of stake from EOS entirely and removing the entire notion of block producers potentially. Again, this struck a lot of fear with the community who thought, what's going on? Is everything about to change again? We've only just kind of got a grasp on where we are with this stuff now. So is this going to take years to develop? What's going to happen? Of course, in reality, Dan was just trying to be honest about his thoughts as he was having them. And he even went into more depth and kind of explained that it's his job at Block One to be the thinker, to be the innovator that's just constantly thinking of new ideas and new ways of doing things, and that it's Block One's job to make EOS as best as they possibly can. So Block One is still working on a bunch of projects. Dan hasn't left the project, but of course, investors and traders who perhaps were maybe feeling a little bit uneasy given the recent decline in price, they felt pretty fearful about it, and as a result, we've seen the price drop further. Overall, as you probably can tell, I'm really not too concerned by this. There's been so much other good stuff going on in EOS that I just don't really see this being an issue. In fact, I think EOS is one of the best buys right now, given the ecosystem and infrastructure behind it. You've got to remember that there are block producers with an awful lot of money behind this project, not to mention the over $1 billion worth of VC funding that has been secured and is committed to investing in projects built on top of EOS. So when you look at a market cap that's only 2.5 billion, you only need to do a bit of maths to figure out that the risk reward ratio on that is very, very, very good indeed, especially compared to some of the other cryptocurrencies right now. As a disclaimer, just before we move off of this subject and head on to the rest of the report, obviously that isn't trading advice. It can still go lower, and I do think that it is likely to go lower than it currently is right now. So let's have a look at our trading stats for the week. We have a portfolio change of plus 4.62%, realized profit of 0.22%. 16 trades were closed in total, 13 of which were profitable and 3 of which were unprofitable. Bitcoin was again our most traded asset with 5 trades in total this week. So as we take a look at our crypto recap, you can see that Bitcoin was the only thing traded this week. 3 long positions and 2 short positions. All of these were day trades, every single one of them. And they were closed at 8.6% profit, minus 12.4% profit. Those were the 2 biggest. 0.7% profit, 0.33% profit, and 5.2% profit. Overall, if you look at how much money was actually made by this, it was in profit, not by a massive amount, but certainly enough to have been worthwhile. On to the stocks and the indices, obviously we have in here as well. So starting out with those, we have the UK 100 and SPX 500. Both of these were short positions that have been open for quite a long time to kind of hedge against the market. I closed these out ahead of the most recent bounce that we've just had. So I'm pretty happy about that. even though they were both closed at a loss of 3.2% and 2.95% respectively. I feel like it was a sensible time to get rid of them. In the UK, Brexit is looking more and more like there could be a second referendum or even a Remain at the end of this entire process. So it just kind of felt like a sensible time to maybe just remove that exposure for now and perhaps head back into that at a later date. AMD has also been enjoyable for me to trade this week. Two long positions were closed at 5.73% and 2.92% respectively. Again, both of these were day trades, so I'm pretty happy about those two trades. That's a good amount of profit. Next up, we have Etsy. So Etsy has been surging recently. Zach's actually upgraded it towards the end of last week and gave some nice comments about how that was performing, along with a few other stocks actually that I trade as well. But Etsy was definitely one of the focal points, and Etsy actually has been pushing up back towards its previous all-time high, which was only set a few weeks ago. So while most stocks have really been struggling to just kind of hold their ground, Etsy is one of very, very few that's currently aiming for new all-time highs. The two trades that I closed on Etsy were closed for 1.59% and 9.1% profit each. Last week, you may remember that I mentioned Garmin, so I actually ended up taking a position in Garmin, just a quick one, based on what I was seeing regarding their wearable stuff. It really does feel like they've secured their position as the big competitor along with Fitbit and Apple in terms of the wearable space. So I'm pretty happy with how they're doing. I would love to trade them more, but they are traditionally a pretty flat instrument and there's not really that much volatility there, especially for day trading. But I managed to turn this around for a 1.21% profit. Next up is Microsoft. So one position here, another day trade closed for 1.34% profit. I do really like Microsoft and I want to have some long-term exposure to them, but I'm also acutely aware of how the big FANG stocks, for example, have really been suffering over the past few months, and I kind of include Microsoft in that group, even though they're not technically in that group. So I'm a little bit wary about Microsoft, but I still want exposure because they're doing a lot of things right, and they're very, very focused on a few key areas of their business. They're not spread thin like they were a few years ago. So I'm pretty happy with how they've been performing, but also quite wary about potentially investing too much at the moment with the market conditions as they are. SolarEdge. So SolarEdge is definitely my favorite trade of the week. I was very, very happy with this trade. It actually performed better than I expected it to. So I opened what was kind of intended as a swing trade, but ended up becoming a day trade in SolarEdge for 10.81% profit in just 24 hours. So very, very happy with that result. I actually did a bunch of research into solar companies again in the middle of last week before opening this position, and came to the conclusion that SolarEdge is definitely the company that's most likely to boom from that industry next year. That being said, I actually am pretty bullish on the entire industry. So I also did a quick trade on First Solar as well for a profit of 1.26%. That one was intended just to be a day trade. Finally, the last trade that I did this week was Tesla. So Tesla, like Etsy, has been pushing for new highs during this recent dip in the markets. So Tesla have been doing incredibly well. They're just on the brink of hitting 1,000 cars produced every day consistently. So this is a really, really exciting time for them. I see a lot of hype around them in the media at the moment, which is a little bit concerning because you don't want to go too nuts if the media's hyping it up, because you get a lot of effectively dumb money coming into the space that's just chasing profits, thinking that it's a dead cert when that's obviously not reality. So Tesla appears on the surface to be doing very, very well. I did a quick trade here, turnaround in 3 days for 1.62% profit, which I'm pretty happy with, although I do want to build at least a little bit of exposure to Tesla for the long term, because I do genuinely believe that despite the hype, that Tesla really will continue to thrive and grow, and that the next couple of years for Tesla is looking incredibly strong. So let's take a look through our performance tab. And as you can see, we are red across the board for portfolio change for the past 4 months, although obviously December has only just started. And before September, we did have a bit of profit back in August. So things not looking too bad this last week. You can see that portfolio change up 4.62%. Certainly doesn't make up for that minus 12% we had in week 47. But if we kind of count that as the anomaly that it was because of the number of crypto positions I was closing in deep, deep red, and the fact that the market was extremely bearish that week, I think that we're looking at least a little bit more healthy. The portfolio, I should stress right now, has got a good amount of spare change. So this is actually the most healthy effectively the balance of the portfolio has been in a very long time. So I'm quite optimistic that we can continue to do this day trading style as the markets are still turbulent, and continue to benefit and actually try and regain some of these losses before the end of the year. If we look at realized trades, you can see that we closed out November at minus 6.66%, so slightly worse than October. But given the fact that we were drawn down at one point by over 20%, to only actually realize 6.66% of that isn't terrible. It's not good either, but it's not terrible. Not as bad as it could have been, and I'm kind of thankful that we managed to turn it around at least a little bit to get it back up to a slightly more sensible level. Again, especially when you consider that in week 47 we had minus 7.18%. So basically week 47 is really what screwed us for November in terms of the realized trades closed, which is for the most part what we care about, especially if you're copying me for the long term. Really, the realized trades is the only thing you need to be worried about. If you're copying me for shorter than that, then perhaps portfolio changes are also a little bit more important. Looking at this week, again, 0.22% profit. It's not much, but it is something. And I'm pretty happy with the trades that I did there, as you can see. At the start of this week, obviously, I've got the benefit of having just gone through a day when I'm recording this. But at the start of this week, there's been some really nice moves in the markets. So I'm hopeful that week 49 we can have another big green week, perhaps even 2% profit. On to the looking forward. So 2 things this week to discuss, both around Christmas and the holidays effectively. The first is my weekly update videos. So obviously I normally release these late on a Monday evening. Monday evening in 2 weeks' time is Christmas Eve here in the UK, so I will not be releasing one on that day because I will be down at my parents' celebrating Christmas. Normally I have Christmas at my house, but this year we're going down to my parents. So it could well not be uploaded until perhaps Wednesday or Thursday of that week. Possibly even if there's not very many trades, I might just roll it into the next update. But I would like to release it on schedule if I can. Second of all, crypto over the holidays. So this is just kind of something that I guess I'm a little bit interested in. I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts and your stories. So maybe I'll bring this up again on the update before Christmas to kind of get some opinions from you guys and see how things are going. But I certainly remember that last Christmas there was an awful lot of discussion for my family and also for my friends' families about cryptocurrency. So it was right when cryptocurrency was surging. A lot of people got in and got very heavily burnt because they got in at a very high price and they didn't really understand what they were getting themselves into. I think this Christmas could be interesting for cryptocurrency because perhaps we will see those people that decided not to get in back then look at the price now as people discuss it over Christmas and decide that they want to get in. And it could actually provide some nice support for the cryptocurrency industry overall in terms of price support. Alternatively, perhaps it will just end up as some sort of a big awkward mess where everyone is blaming each other for telling each other to buy XRP or Verge or whatever it happens to be at Christmas, and they're now very, very disappointed with the results. But regardless, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think it's going to go. Did any of your family members invest? Did any of them care? Did you tell them about cryptocurrency? It'd be interesting to find out. So feel free to leave a comment with your experiences and also what you expect to happen this Christmas. Maybe you're a bit fearful of more encounters with family members that you told to buy right at the top of the market. Okay, well, that does it for me now that I've kind of ranted about Christmas for a bit. Thanks for watching, everyone. This week was a pretty good week. I'm hoping that next week is going to be an amazing week. So far, based off of just today, this Monday, it has been a very, very good start to the week. So I'm pretty excited to hopefully give you guys a nice green week next week. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.